Hi everyone, my name is Suchi Reddy. I'm the founder of Reddymade, an architecture and interior design practice based in New York City, and I'm here with Design Milk as part of DMTV Milkshake. I'm a native of India. I immigrated to the US at the age of 18. I worked for different people across the country. I came to New York about 20 years ago and began my own practice. I'm proud to say that I have 15 really wonderful people who work with me to make sure that we make projects that make a difference to our clients and to the world. So what I'd like to say really about these last few months and these unprecedented and historic times that we've been living through is that they're not just challenging. What they are is a huge opportunity for us as people in the design world who are going to look at recreating this world with different values at its core, the values of equality and the values of caring for other people, of knowing that the well-being of everyone else matters just as much as our own well-being. And I, for one, am really optimistic that we will come out of this time making the right choices. So here's to that. And I'm going to start answering some questions. I've been given them, I cut them up and put them in my favorite wooden bowl, and I'm pulling out a few so that I can answer them. The first one says, what are some factors that attract you to projects and what are some that deter you? I truly believe that it is the mission and the purpose of architecture to uplift and serve its community. So whenever there is a not-for-profit aspect to a project or a civic aspect to a project, that really attracts me. But really, and simply put, I think nice people and nice projects are my motto. The second one says, your projects range from social justice, environmental to human-centric, and each project has a very different brief. Do you employ a consistent initial research approach to your work, or does it differ for each project? I think one of the main and amazing things about being an architect or designer or practicing artist is really that this idea that nothing has to be the same. I'm not somebody who thinks that every project needs to look the same. Everything has its own character. It's a unique response to a problem. And we always look at what that problem is and what its specific needs are, who the client is, what that community is, and really try to come up with a solution that's tailored thoughtfully to that. But at the core of it is really always this belief and this interest in this idea that the world that we live in affects us and we affect it. So the quality of that interaction is an incredibly important one. And I focus on that as the actual essence from which I start to think about a project. Something that helps me in this endeavor is a new field, a relatively new field, that has emerged over the last decade or two called neuroaesthetics, that looks at how our environments affect our brain and body. So we have been bringing more research that's based on those ideas into the projects that we do, but regardless of brief, regardless of typology, the ethos and the motto is the same, which is form follows feeling. Question number 3. What cities or locations inspire you the most and why? This is quite a question in a time when we can't travel. So rather than being aspirational, what I will say is that I find almost every place or every city that I am really, really inspiring. One of the other beautiful things I find about being a designer is that one is never bored. We can always be interested by how things are made, why they become the way they are. So I'm always interested, but I would say that some of my favorite cities are the city of Ahmedabad in India, which boasts amazing architecture and has a scale and a spirit that I think is very beautiful and interesting. The city of Istanbul, which just for its history and meld of religions and geography is incredibly beautiful. And the city of Milan, which I had been lucky enough to go to every year for the last few years, including for an installation we did last year with Google. And it never ceases to amaze me with the variety of architecture and the really refined sense of design that pervades that city. Next question says, do you have any memorable childhood experiences that shaped who you are as a designer and architect? Absolutely. I was lucky enough to be raised in a house that was actually designed by an architect. My father asked a friend of his who was an autodidact and a fan of Japanese architecture to actually design our home. And growing up, I just knew that I was different because my house was different. I can't tell you when I knew that, but my house was certainly a protagonist in my life and certainly shaped me. And this theme, as you'll see, has continued, where this idea that our environment really affects us has been imprinted on me since when I was a child. So whether it is through all of the work we've done in the decades, or now during this pandemic, when so many of us are confined to our personal spaces, and the quality of that is becoming so apparently important to our well-being. It's, an idea that I've grown up with, that I've imbibed in myself since I was a child. Let's see. I think I have couple more questions that I can take. You have identified neuroaesthetics as one of the guiding principles of Reddymade. Can you define neuroaesthetics and explain why it is an important part of your work? I think I touched on this a little bit, but neuroaesthetics is a field that looks at how the brain and the body respond to aesthetic experiences. And that includes our cities, our spaces, our homes, and anything else that we encounter in our world, in this world of embodied cognition, as we call it. And it's a very interesting field that puts the fields of science and design together. One project that we did in connection with this principle is an installation that we did in Milan last year in April with Google, the International Arts and Mind Lab at Johns Hopkins University, and the furniture company Muto, where we created 3 different spaces and looked at allowing people to be in these spaces and feeding their bodily reactions to these spaces back to them as an artistic mandala that showed them that physically their spaces were having an effect on them. So there are several projects along this line that we are engaged in at the moment. One of them also being a prototypical hospital room that can improve the recovery rates of children suffering from disorders of consciousness. So this is a brand new field, a very exciting one, and I'm very honored and proud to be involved in it. I think that brings me to the end of my time. It's been wonderful talking to you. Please stay safe, stay well, stay positive, and let's make this a great new world we come back to.